Oh.
We're live.
All right. We're live?
We're live.
All right, good. Dude, thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Me and Jay basically have talked about everything already, but now we'll have you guys here too. This is Jason Frawley, who owns Paper Street BJJ. He's my jiu-jitsu coach. I've been training there for 2 years. I've got my blue belt under him and Maida. And one of the reasons, so Jay is a black belt and super knowledgeable. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have him here tonight is because there's such a journey to a black belt. And I think it's very relatable for anybody who works out, and especially my clients, and any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, because of the patience it takes and the hard work and the consistency and all the effort that goes into it and all the attitude. So I really appreciate you doing this. But one of the reasons I always enjoyed coming to your class, and I like you so much, is because your level of normalcy. Because the stereotype that we have is like, if me as a trainer, if someone sees me at the mall, they expect me to have like dumbbells in my pockets or like a banana on me or some shit. Or I'm sure you probably deal with that a little bit. Like if you're at a party, like someone's like, "Yo, where's your robe at? Where's your gi at? Like, are you gonna beat me up, dude?"
To be fair, most times all I wear is sweatpants and a t-shirt anyway. So I'm actually dressed up really nice for you here.
You own normal clothes.
I wear jeans.
Oh, okay.
I have my jeans on. I didn't wear my gi, but yeah, I get that a lot. I get people, they expect me to be wearing like fitness clothes all the time. And to be like, since I've had my son, that's all I wear is sweatpants now.
Right.
So I've changed over to that. I made a comment when I was young. I hated teachers, and I dressed really nice, and now I teach and I dress like a gym teacher, right? I'm just in sweatpants all the time. But no, yeah, you go out somewhere and people are like, "Hey man, like, oh look, Jay's not wearing his gi." Like, yeah.
So if you're stopped at like a red light, you're not going to get out of your car and beat someone up.
To be fair, in the jiu-jitsu community, if you see somebody walking around in their gi at like 7-Eleven and stuff, you're like, when I first started, like,
it's like the Jeep thing.
You're going to see it now. No. You're going to see it now because a lot of karate guys will show up like that. I'm not
really?
just karate. I love karate. I have black belts in karate. Don't take that wrong. But they'll walk around in their uniform, and it's like,
oh, that's a thing? I didn't know that.
Jiu-jitsu guys do not do that. Okay, we don't do that. Most times we don't want to advertise what we do.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you are. What's interesting is you're big as a black belt of trying not to even have to use jiu-jitsu,
right?
Or having to use your self-defense.
The better you get at jiu-jitsu, the less you want to actually like MMA fighters, jiu-jitsu fighters. We don't want to get in a fight. We're sore. We're tired.
Right.
That means we're training. If you're training properly, you're sore and tired all the time.
Right.
But the reality is, you train self-defense to not use self-defense, right? Because you don't want to be, well, one, I don't want to be in the news as that jiu-jitsu instructor that chokes somebody unconscious. It would be cool though, because I'm so little to be like this big guy. Like
he took his back, he armbarred him, perfect back take.
But I used to get in a lot of fist fights like that when I first started training because I'm the smallest guy. Whenever I would go out to like a party or something. But as I continued to train, I got more level-headed and more focused, and I actually it made me relax a little bit, so that if somebody started a conversation with me, I would talk my way out of it instead of immediately go to like fight or flight mode, because I've been in fight or flight mode every day this week. In the gym.
Right.
My students are always trying to choke me out. They're always trying to hit me. They're always trying. So when somebody on the street comes up and tries to do that, I'm relaxed. I'm like, "Hey man, yeah, what's up? Like maybe we shouldn't fight because we're both adults and not idiots."
How did you get into it? Like why did you start doing jiu-jitsu?
So I wrestled most of my life. I started out in karate. We didn't have jiu-jitsu as a kid. It was karate, wrestling. There were some judo clubs around.
What year is this?
80s, 90s.
Wow.
And then when I went to college, I wrestled in college, and they Title IX the program, so there wasn't enough men's to women's ratio of programs, so they get rid of the wrestling program, the first one to go all the time.
Wow. So
I lived up in a small town called Shingle House, Pennsylvania, where my wife was from. And if anybody listening knows where Shingle House is, it's because they hunt or fish. Okay, it's in Potter County. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Bunch of people with shingles?
And a friend of mine, it might have been my mother. Yeah, it's a shingled house.
So everybody has shingles? You know everybody?
I think it might have been my mother that bought me a VHS tape called How to Break Dance Volume 1. I wanted to break dance. Okay? So I popped the tape in. Always an athlete. I popped the tape in. I do the first 2 moves on the tape. Couldn't do them. So I'm like, oh, we got to get in shape here. So me and my friends started lifting weights. We were actually out at the gas station. There was a sign up for karate classes, and as a joke, we were like, let's go take the karate class. So we suffered through this karate class because we didn't want to do karate, okay? The guy taught a good class. We didn't want to do karate. We make it through this karate class, and this guy had a neck that came out to here, and we're like, what is this guy's deal? And he goes, you guys want to stay and roll? And we're like, we roll on our carpet with each other, me and my buddy, like all the time. So we get down to the mat with this guy, and he murders us. Just murders us. We're like, he's choking us. A lot of neck cranks, a lot of, and we're like, what is this? And I knew what jiu-jitsu was at that point. There just wasn't jiu-jitsu around for me. And he's like, well,
right.
I trained jiu-jitsu. I was in the military. I've done this. I've done that. He became my first martial arts instructor. And when I started getting really good at what he was teaching, which was a full blended, it was mixed martial arts before it was mixed martial arts.
Right.
And he still teaches jiu-jitsu to this day. It's a Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's a self-defense based jiu-jitsu. Up still in that area. And then I got the bug, and I was like, man, I want to do this. So I moved back down to this area to get better training. Right. And then I started training, and started training really hard, and every day, that's all I did. I actually did, on my days off, I would do the morning class and the evening class, but I trained 7 days a week getting started.
Which is interesting, because that's opposite of your approach now.
Right, and that's why that's the opposite of my approach. My whole goal as an instructor now is for my students to get better than I am, faster, without all the injuries, right? Because I trained wrong. I trained as hard as I could every single day, and while I was winning everything, I'm 41 now, there's days I can't train because my neck hurts, my back hurts, my knees hurt. And that's it becomes the joke in jiu-jitsu, like, if you do jiu-jitsu, you don't have a day where you're not sore. It shouldn't be like that. Sore is one thing. Right. Injured is another. So there has to be a way that we can, make that a thing, right? By like with what you do, what
Absolutely.
I mean?
It's completely relatable to what we do, and we talk about it all the time. Like and I actually wrote about this in my book, and it's a form and a process that I adapted from Joel Jamieson. He calls it high day, low day. Yeah. And he actually trains Mighty Mouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, damn.
Yeah. And so they're very specific with it, and very involved with heart rate monitors, and will actually look like if you got above. Someone like, as athletic as Mighty Mouse, like above like 150 heart rate. Athlete, right. But for the general population, for simplicity, 1 day hard, 1 day low. Oh, you know what I mean? Because if you look at that, yeah, sure, some people can go hard for a month on end, right. And some people even more, maybe even 3 months on end, you know what I mean? Absolutely. But if you, for the longevity, and especially when talking to a black belt, someone who knows how long it actually takes, because they say 10 to 12 years at least for a black belt. I'm looking for people to train annually. Yeah. Because to me, a good training program, and there's also a difference of training and then lifestyle. Yes. And if you're someone who just cares about the lifestyle and just wants to feel better and move better, look a little better, then that's great. Then implement some everyday lifestyle stuff like walking and lift some weights 2 times a week. Stretch a little bit. Drink water. Yep. But if you're someone who's training for a specific goal, for a specific adaptation, well then if you go too hard, too fast, too soon, and you're not doing stuff with progression and properly and over the period of time and having patience with it, of course you're going to overtrain, and then that, like you said, it's going to lead to injuries. Yeah. You might even get sick. I mean, you hear people getting sick all the time.
That's because you're putting your body at stress, and when your body's at stress, it's going to react that way. Pimples, breakouts, sickness, colds, getting colds easier. But I love rolling hard. I love training hard, okay? You can't do that every day. There are guys that can do that every day. I'm telling you right now that most people can't. Right. There's people that are just genetic freaks. You've seen them that can lift hard as hell every single day, have freak mobility, flexibility. But the average person needs that. I agree with that 100%. Flow rolling. Gyms that say we don't flow roll because it's a bravado thing. That's great. I'll flow roll. That's fine. If they were 5'2", I bet you they would do more flow roll. Okay. Everybody, I love that people say I roll with every one of my students every day. No, I duck students sometimes. I'm 5'2", 130 pounds. Right. When my heavyweight students that have been with me 7 years come up and go, Joe, you want to roll? Sometimes I say no, thank you, because I know they want to roll and play with me like I'm a cat in a ball of yarn.
But the bottom line is that you're rolling every day though by doing that.
I train every day.
And then so many people in the gym, I mean, it's like the New Year's phenomenon. Yeah. People go, I don't think people get lazy, and I've said this before on this podcast, but I don't think people get lazy after New Year's. I think people do too much, too soon, too fast. And in my field,
they get burnt out.
and they get burnt out. Or they actually get depressed. Or they just don't have the energy levels because, of course, they're not doing the nutrition side of things like we talked about and the sleep.
Right.
And in my field, you're saying like rolling too much and too often. In my field, it's everybody wants to be ran into the ground. Yes. Or if you're not so sore you can't walk or puking, it wasn't a good workout. And what a silly way to train. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, anybody can run around a building and get tired. Or anybody
but again, there's people that can do that.
Right.
But
few and far between, for sure. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's progression, and proper training.
Well, so you and I both agree on that mindset of, the average guy off the street should come in and you encourage them to train 2-3 days a week. Then start adding more in, right? Most of my students will take the fundamentals class, which is 2 days a week, and then do a third class, or do this fundamentals and stay for the advanced class after months of training, right? Because you're not just teaching movement, awareness, how to keep your body tight, how to keep everything strong, but you're also in jiu-jitsu teaching how to manipulate somebody else's weight.
And repetition.
Yeah. And it's not like lifting a weight where it's like, okay, this weight is going to come down as long as I keep it balanced. This guy's on top is going to be moving left and right, forward and back, and grabbing the hold of your neck and twisting it off.
Right.
So when I really encourage people to take that fundamentals class first, because you're learning. I do this because of this, and I do this because of this. I should do this because he's doing that. You're not just learning, I need to move myself like this.
For sure.
I need to do this because he's doing that. Reaction.
And as simplistic as that sounds, and as hard as that is for some people to hear, I mean, the basics work. Whether it's in fitness or whether it's with jiu-jitsu, because people come in, they want more. I want to go harder. But if you can't bend down and touch your toes, why am I going to load a bar heavy enough? You better be willing to go.
You don't have that machine. I need that machine that does this. It's like, can you touch your toes? Correct. Can you do a full squat?
Yes. And can you do a push-up? And can you pull your own body weight? Can you put one foot in front of the other with a lunge? You know what I mean? And until you can do those things and you're willing to go through the process of doing them, I don't think the pattern should be loaded, you know what I mean, with weights. And I don't think things should be progress.
I'd love to be as strong as you. I would love that. But that's going to take me a lot longer than somebody that's bigger and stronger. But you're bigger, physically bigger than me. So while I could get as strong as you, it's going to take me a lot longer. If I was willing to go through that training, I could get very strong. Right. I like weight training 2 days a week for myself, max, just to retain some strength that I've developed over the years, and to keep some muscle balance. But if I were to lift to become super strong, I'm sure it would take away from some of my jiu-jitsu training. I think weight training, flexibility training, agility training, all those things are essential for jiu-jitsu, but technique wins all.
Yeah, for
Bottom
sure.
line.
Doing things right, and to be honest, I think a mixture of everything is really good.
Well, you look at the guys that have come to my place and are training with you.
Right.
They're all they're all killers on the mat.
Right. Training
great.
here.
Yeah.
You know what? And I think that the understanding of the guys who have done that, like that, flexibility matters. Cardio and conditioning and energy system development matters. Resistance training like you do, like even if it's just twice a week, to build some bone density and prevent injuries so that you build body armor. I don't like that term. But then doing something that you think is fun, where you're actually burning calories and you're getting stress relief and things along those lines. Like for me, I actually, believe it or not, I lift weights 3-4 times a week. The other days I'm hiking, or I'm doing jiu-jitsu, or I'm doing some form of mobility. Do you think that that's how, so it kind of sounds like that's what you're saying maybe is the best way, if you're a white belt or you're a true beginner, or a beginner to fitness, you think that's the best approach? Start slow, twice a week?
I mean, especially because most people that start jiu-jitsu and are really into, either they want to go to MMA or jiu-jitsu competitions, they'll start to do, not only will they train jiu-jitsu twice a week, they'll go to the gym and lift, and they don't have a trainer, they're just putting up crazy weight, or they'll go and do sprints and runs. It's like just baby steps, overtraining, right? I think overtraining, overtraining is a real thing, but I think you can train yourself not to, right? So if you add things in slowly, you can do more training. Like I literally train 6 days a week, I'd say. Even the days that my assistant instructors teach, I'm still in there working with my guys, like another class or doing it, you know what I mean? And if I'm not doing that, I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting a little bit. But it took me years to do that. That didn't happen overnight. When I first started doing jiu-jitsu, it was like, even though I was overdoing it when I was doing it, my first week of jiu-jitsu, I was training like 3 or 4 times a week. And that was too much. It should have been 2 days. Get started slow, move slow. And then the other thing is that people don't spend enough time on flexibility and movement, okay? How to move your body correctly. But flexibility is key. In here, or in my place, what you're looking at with flexibility is the more flexible you are, the least likely you're going to get injured. Right? The more range of motion that you have, the less likely you're going to twist something and pull something, you know?
And moving your body in different patterns, I think, is important too.
I don't know what that means, but I'll
So what I mean by that is like getting up and down off the floor, for instance. You know, if you're a senior, you know, getting up and down off the ground in the combat positions that we do, like getting our hips through, or starting to stand up on one leg, or having a hand behind us and starting to stand up almost like a Turkish get-up. Those things happen in real life, you know? And so practicing that is great. Just moving your hips in awkward positions. I've noticed that my hip pain has almost gone away in certain degrees. So, you know, it's good to practice different realms, you know, I think in general.
But you want to be well-rounded as a person, not just physically, right? But learning those adaptations, like adding those things in. So if, like me personally, if I'm having neck pain, I'm going to start doing some more yoga to get that mobility going, or I'll do more body weight training and lay off the weights this week. I won't roll this week. I'll just teach class and do some light, you know, drilling. But you have to be aware of what your body's teaching you. You know,
For sure.
Or you're going to get mangled.
And I really think that it truly, and I preach this all the time, and I think it sounds overly cliche, but I think that definitely jiu-jitsu and 100, you know, and resistance training and the lifestyle, like it really helps you out mentally, and it makes you a better person, especially if you can undergo some of the emotional situations that you're in and the failures that you're put against. You know what I mean? And the understanding of like hardships that you get in the gym, you know. And especially as a black belt, someone who like, you know, 10 to 12 years of doing that. And so some of the times the training isn't necessarily about the progression physically. You know, it's, you know, can you go through some of these things and how are you going to get through them? And I think that it 100% carries over into other aspects of your life.
Absolutely. Well, especially the self-defense portion, right? Because we're doing real self-defense every day. Somebody puts their hands on you, how do you react? Right? Do you freak out and clam up, right? So if you're not creating stressors in your life, you're not going to have that reaction time, right? If you're not doing the weight training like you're doing, when somebody has a slip or a fall, they're not going to be able to stand up, right? If you're not teaching that movement, I guess. I don't know.
For sure.
That's your world, not mine. But, you know, in the jiu-jitsu world, it's simple. Like, you want to train in the worst case possible scenario. Somebody pinned on top of you. Like, somebody has all their weight on top of you. You better stop thinking about pushing them off and start thinking about moving yourself, right? So you and I, when we train, I'm not trying to move you. You're gigantic compared to me. Like, you're a strong guy. I move myself. I'll attach myself to you and move. Well, guess what? You're going with me.
That's when I realized that, like, the whole understanding of knowing some form of self-defense is very real. You know what I'm saying? The first time that we rolled, and many people in Paper Street, but I remember like my 3rd or 4th week we rolled together, and I'm like laying on my back, and the way in which that you were moving your body just circling around me, I was like, this is interesting. You know, that like people can move like that in duress situations. But it can be jiu-jitsu, but it can be weight training, but also just utilizing like hard things like this. You know, not doing too much of it, of course, like, because we're talking about not overtraining and, you know, not doing too much to stress yourself out. But, you know, whether it's a competition in jiu-jitsu or whether it's a 5K, you know, or like these charity events and, you know, just different things that you set goals to accomplish, I think are important, because those hardships and mini adversities are extremely important.
We talked earlier being a dad. You know what I mean? Like, that's hard. That's really, jiu-jitsu's easy compared to that, right? But jiu-jitsu teaches efficiency of movement, okay? And you'll hear a lot of jiu-jitsu guys say things like, jiu-jitsu your life, you know what I mean? Like, apply jiu-jitsu to your life. And all they're saying is find the most efficient way to make things work,
Right.
You know, don't get too stressed. Like the first thing I tell guys when they first start is, well, how can I get better at jiu-jitsu? Learn to tap out. Right? Because if something hurts and you tap, you can continue to fight. Right? But what you're really learning when you're tapping and when somebody catches in a move, you're getting a reaction time. Right? So the next time somebody does that, oh, wait, I can do this. Because you're not freaking out. You know, especially if you have a conversation. I love when my guys, after you tap somebody, like, dude, how'd you get that? Right? And then have a conversation about it. That's pretty unique. But, you know, when you apply jiu-jitsu to your entire life, right, you're trying to find the quickest path to the submission, right, or the quickest path to the diaper change. But, you know, it's funny when when I really start to break down like what I'm doing in the world. And we were laughing earlier. I said I do nothing outside of jiu-jitsu because I don't. I just do jiu-jitsu and I take care of my kid and I just kind of like make sure, you know, everything gets squared away in my gym, and I just worry about all my students and my kid, and that's life.
Right.
But I'm always finding the best path, the best way. You know, how do I educate my kid the best? Am I doing everything I can for him? Right. How am I doing that with my students? Are my students winning tournaments? Are they achieving their goals? Are they losing weight? Okay. Do they have a smile on their face? Are they pissed off?
Right. And if you're not doing, and in this case, it's jiu-jitsu or, you know, working out or things, but you have to have something that you can use and utilize to make relatable to those situations. Absolutely. And also the fact that there is a huge fallacy or, you know, this world that we set up in our head where things aren't going to be hard or there's going to be a straight line that we take. And especially when getting results in the gym, I don't think there's any, you know, I mean, look, there's a lot of really tough careers out there, but I think one of the hardest things to do in the world, and I was talking to a doctor and a lawyer about this the other day, and I was like, I think one of the hardest, and they agreed, and that's a doctor and a lawyer, I said one of the hardest things to do is to stay consistent, to exercise, right? And it's specifically like we talked about, we disassociated the program, you know, actually training for something and just having a fit lifestyle. Sure. Especially when you're actually training for a goal. You know what I mean? I think one of the hardest things to do is to stay consistent with that and frequent with that for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years on end. You know what I mean? And then
I think I'm over 15 at this point.
Right. That's insane if you think about that. And people want something tomorrow, but the bottom line is that's 15 years of grinding, and showing up and staying consistent.
Something is going to happen tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure.
In your world and mine, something is going to happen tomorrow, okay? But it's subtle, and it's so subtle. It's like when your kid's growing, right? And you don't notice until somebody goes, "Whoa, man! Like, he's big now." And, oh yeah, he is big now. Like, that's crazy, because that kind of stuff in our life happens so slowly and it's so subtly that you don't always notice the difference. Like you're losing weight, you know, people losing weight, especially when they're lifting weights, because they could be putting on muscle and they're like, "I'm not losing weight, but my clothes fit differently." Well, then you're losing weight.
Right. Like, you're moving better and you're feeling better.
Right. So
your life's improving.
But the one thing I teach is you can't measure your jiu-jitsu and you can't focus on your jiu-jitsu in days and weeks, because nothing's going to happen in that time. Besides being more positive and being sore as hell. But months and years. Right. You know, you're going to see results 6 months down the road. Yeah, when I teach you something, you're not going to ask me 6 questions about it. You're just going to...
And dude, it's going to be hard.
Yes.
And you're going to feel weird.
But that's not...
Really weird.
If it wasn't hard, why would you do it?
Right, correct. Like the first time that you do jiu-jitsu, you feel as weird as possible. You have grown men breathing in your ears.
Sweating in your eyeballs.
Exactly. The first time that you do a push-up, and I get that. Like you walk in, it's an intimidating environment maybe, and you learn a push-up, like you might literally feel like a seal. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to be willing to say, okay, I feel like shit right now. Yeah. I'm moving like shit right now, but I'm willing to... like we keep saying, like just kind of go through the progression. And if you're not, that's part of it though. Yeah. Sitting down with yourself and having that conversation with yourself and understanding that is part of the resistance. 100%.
But having that awareness with yourself is the most important thing. Most people don't have that a connection to their body. They're just shoveling crap in their body and looking for the results that they can't find because they're not consistent. They're not eating right. They're not doing strength training. They're not doing exercise. They're not stretching after a program. Like, man, I'm so sore. Did you stretch after?
Right.
Did
doing
you
things on your own.
Water that day?
Absolutely.
Did you eat vegetables and fruit? You know what I mean?
Well, to piggyback that, absolutely. Like, if you think about, the pillars of lifestyle or working out, obviously there's resistance training a few times a week, and there's conditioning, and then there's sleeping and rest, you know what I mean, and stretching and stress relief. And if you're missing any of those pillars, depending on how big of a goal that you want, of course that's going to hinder you to a degree. And for someone that has been doing it for 10 to 15 years, has there been times where you wanted to quit? Has there been time what do you do during those times? When you've hit not rock bottom, but periods where you're like, what am I doing it for? Am I going to start seeing results? There has to be.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, so I've had a lot of neck and back injuries. There's been times where I couldn't train. In fact, 4 years ago, I think it was right around It was either right before or right after my son was born. My back was so twisted up, I was in so much pain. I spent more time off the mat that year than on the mat. It was a really depressing time. And I let the world kind of beat me down for a good year there. And it was, well, thank God I had good students and good my assistant instructors and friends that kind of helped me pick myself back up, dust me off. Beginning of this year, I was 165 pounds at 5'2". That was uncomfortable. So I focused and I set some goals, and I'm 130 pounds right now. I just competed at 125 pounds, which I want to walk around at 125 eventually, but we'll get there. Right. But people think that because I'm an athlete, because I'm an instructor, that I got all my crap together, right? Every day's easy. Every day's hard. We're normal like everybody else. I got good days and bad days. There's days that I show up at the gym, I don't want to train. I don't want to exercise, right? But I want to see my people get better. I want to see my people succeed. So part of them succeeding is me creating a good program, teaching a good class, getting some good roles in. I want to roll with as many of my students as possible every night, because I want them to experience training with a black belt, specifically a smaller black belt that can move fast. You know what I mean? So I think the one thing that keeps me going and keeps me moving and keeps me achieving is the same thing we've been talking about all along, same thing I've been talking about all along, is my focus is on my students and on my kid. I want to roll with my kid someday. You know what I mean? So, and that's one of the reasons why I focus on the mobility training, the flexibility. I don't want to be in neck pain. I don't want to have neck pain. I don't want neck surgery. Neck surgery is for rich people. So
but I also think, though, there's always something you can do, right? Or there's always something that you can be doing, right? So even if it's not physically, one of my big things is that I'm always trying to read and not just believe everything I read and things along those lines. But I'm always trying to get educated a little bit more. And then if you're someone who's, not a trainer or not a professor, you're just into fitness, if you want to learn a little bit more about your diet, you can always text me, and I can teach you a little bit more about nutrition. Or, maybe, there's just something else that you could do, educating yourself a little bit more. Or maybe you sit down and you have 15 minutes on your hands and, you're nursing an injury, but now maybe you can set goals in that 15 minutes of, okay, this week I want to accomplish this. You know what I mean?
But so that's part of what we keep talking about is, part of that journey of, the thing that keeps people going and moving is setting those goals and doing those things. And when you get demotivated, digging deep and finding your motivation. When I tore my knee, I was a purple belt and I was fighting MMA at the time. It was the most depressing. I may never fight again. I didn't fight again, actually. No, I did one more fight after that. But I tore my knee, and I went back and I taught classes on crutches. I couldn't get on the mat. You know what happened during that time? Then, like you said, if I can't train, I watch tons of videos. I study, I watch. If I can't roll, I sit on the mat and I watch all my students flow and roll. But I gained the ability to look at somebody and tell them what to do without doing it, which is really hard. So now when I go to a tournament, and the place is all quiet, and you hear me across the room. Well, you go to these tournaments, and these coaches are like, "Watch the armbar." Like, it's too late, guy. You know what I mean?
Right. You utilize your downtime.
So, then you hear me like, take your left hand, put it on his right arm, spin around behind. Okay, get your gable grip,
Right. But I think unlike from most scenarios, like at a bar or in our situations, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a gym, you team bond. When you make relationships, unlike from any others that you make in other aspects of your life. Mm-hmm. Like, if you go to dinner with, you have your dinner buddy, you're going to have a great time with them. You watch a movie with someone, you're going to have a great time. Have a beer with someone, okay, that's that type of relationship though. And all those things are great. But there's something very different and something very deep about being on that hill with your partner. As
sharing sweat.
Or rolling with someone. Or the partner literally putting his hand on your back, and I've been there, and someone pushing me up that hill.
Or neck cranking.
Or choking someone out. Or the person, like maybe it's your trainer or your close friend calling you, like, hey, did you eat good today? Are we going to the gym today? Can you pick me up? Can you pick me up when you're down? Because when I'm not motivated, that's what I do. I get into the environment and I take advantage of, and we're very blessed with just amazing, the atmosphere is provided to us by, my people and the awesome people at Paper Street.
Well, you want to create your environment.
Yes.
And one of the things that me and my assistant instructor, we really focused on when I opened up Paper Street and he came on board, thank God, because, he's done so much for the gym. But we really focused on, like, how do we create a tough environment but keep everybody healthy, right? You look at my gym is full of guys that are in their 30s, 40s, right? You don't see that in a lot of places. Mm. Because you have to teach to train as hard as you can, right? Don't compare this guy to that guy. Mm. It's just as hard as you can.
For sure.
I want my guys to be as good as they can be, as strong as they can be, as fast as they can be, without getting injured. I want all of my students to be better, stronger, faster, achieve all their goals. But how do we do it without overdoing it, right? So what we started this conversation with. How do we do it without overdoing it?
Which I appreciate so much, because the last thing I want to do is get hurt. And
if
to be
you
honest
get hurt,
with you,
that's devastating for you.
For sure. And one thing that you've always understood about me, which I really appreciate, is I'm just there to do some jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I just want to know some self-defense from knowing nothing.
Well, that's real self-defense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that it would be easy for someone like me to 2 years in, like, start thinking that, and we see this all the time in the gym too, like, okay, I can do more now, And so the patience there matters. To wrap this up, what is one of the most satisfying things that you see, like, with your students? Like, what is some of the things that satisfy you the most?
Competition always satisfies me because I'm a very competitive person. Mm. So my students, I don't force competition. Okay. I suggest, hey, maybe you guys should do this competition. Most guys like that are really into it. Go, we're shutting down Saturday. I'm not teaching Saturday because I'm coaching a competition. So competition really gets me fired up. I love seeing my guys go in competition and doing well because sport jiu-jitsu isn't for everybody, but the stuff that happened, the emotions that you feel during that time span on the mat, you feel all the worst human emotions, and then you win, or you lose and you feel even worse. But overcoming that, right? It's a whole nother animal. But that's not it. Watching my students, when I teach a good class, and how I know I teach a good class is when nobody's sitting on their butt like this, nobody's talking, they're just drilling, they're getting the movement. I'm like, oh man, I did it today. All right, I did it today. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's figuring it out. Everybody's doing the movement. Everybody's using clean technique instead of muscle and strength. That's probably where I get the most satisfaction in my job. Just when I look around and everybody's just moving correctly and flowing and enjoying themselves. They're choking their friends out with a smile.
I'll lead you say that. But all walks of life that are there, and then all walks of life that are in this gym too. And when you see people going from A to D, and willing to take the steps that it takes to get there and continuing to do it
and doing it with relatively a bunch of strangers. That's the hardest part in any gym is bonding with people when you get here, like you said. But the people that come to places like our places, this is what we do.
And pride doesn't work.
No,
Right.
you can't just focus on yourself when you're in a team environment. Okay,
For sure.
You can. You have people like that, but that's not how you succeed. You succeed by trying to make your teammates succeed. Mm-hmm. So again, just putting it out there and just working as hard as you can is great. But if you don't have a structure, a support, you know what I mean, you're missing something.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't have that camaraderie with some of your teammates, like that's a shame, because sweating with each other,
and makes you better. The better that they get, and especially
the more training. I mean, what is it? They say like sharks train with sharks. I don't know all that bravado crap that people talk about in jiu-jitsu. But the bottom line is, if my guys aren't getting better, I'm not getting better, right? So if I'm not teaching my students my best tricks, if you will, we teach fundamentals every day, but if I'm not showing them like, ooh, I'm working on this now, ooh, I'm choking everybody with this, I'm not gonna teach anybody so I can keep winning. That's dumb. I want everyone to learn it, so I have to use something else, right? If my guys aren't getting better, if your teammates aren't getting better, if your training partners aren't achieving their goals, you're going to lose a training partner. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it helps to be like a nice person who enjoys.
Sure, that helps in life. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and encouraging to others. For sure.
I'm not always nice.
Yeah. Dude, I really appreciate you doing this, man. That was awesome. Right. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Hope that helped.